Good afternoon, everyone, and we're going to call to order this special meeting of the Stillwater Utility Authority for July 19th, 2014. First item on the docket is Resolution SUA 2014-7. Galloway, are you guys?
Yes, staff's been in New York today. They've been selling bonds. John Wolf, I believe. John, are you going to make a brief presentation to kind of summarize? John's been on the phone with him as well. Everything I heard from Dan and Marcy was extremely good news on the sale of the bonds. Interest rates beat what we hoped they would be, and a lot of good news. And John can give you a summary of those activities, and
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Yes, to echo Mr. Galloway, we had a very fortunate day. I've passed out one sheet handout. One side, you have kind of a blue border at the top. I'm going to discuss that information. And back side is actually the final debt payment schedule regarding the 2014A bonds. Kind of an anomaly today in that, or certainly even not today, but recently, that we have the stock market at almost 17,000, the Dow at 17,000, yet Treasury rates, governmental municipal bond rates are at a low area for the last month as far as floating around 10 years at a 245, 246. And typically they go the other direction. When you jump into the stock market, you get out of the bond market, interest rates go up. So Stillwater was very fortunate today to receive favorable pricing. You have in front of you the parameters that were approved within the resolution that was approved your meeting before last. The $70 million was the par amount not to exceed. We actually ended up at $61,830,000. And more importantly, as far as the bond interest rate, the maximum annual debt service, you approved at that previous resolution of 5.25% not to exceed. We were actually at a 3.88% fixed average rate fixed over the term. That's all inclusive. That's all costs involved, financing costs, everything thrown together. We were looking to not exceed the capacity payment of $4.3 million, and the actual maximum annual debt service that you'll be able to look at on the opposite page is at $4,138,000. So we're almost $200,000 under the capacity payment. Just to elaborate, as your financial advisor, this is an extremely good rate for this long a term based on your credit rating. You did have approximately $2 million in local retail investors invest in the $61.8 million. So I think things worked out very well. Like I said, on the flip side of this handout is what your debt payments will look like out to 2042. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. Just wanted to reiterate that we hit a home run today. So
One of the things I talked to staff about earlier, the good news, because the rate is low, and it's on this chart, the maximum debt service in any given year over the next 27 years is 4.138, and our annual capacity payment from GRDA is 4.3. So in the worst year, we're going to make our debt service on the new plant and be able to put $162,000 into our rate stabilization fund,
and
which is a real payoff to our customers because it'll help keep rates lower.
that also does not
Best
include.
news of the day, I thought.
You have a reserve fund that's associated with this that's required to be set aside of a little at the 4.1 million that was mentioned. That figure that Dan just gave you does not even include your investment earnings off of that reserve fund. And we'll be talking with staff as far as long-term investment that could possibly push you to $85,000 to $95,000 a year on top of that and invest in that reserve fund. So even greater spread.
Not John, John, sorry. This doesn't include, this is just to have it, right? If we turn it on, we get more too, correct?
Potentially.
Yes, so this is just to have it, okay.
It's just the base.
So that's that number we're going off. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Wolf?
Thank you.
Thank you for the good news.
Okay. We've heard from Mr. Wolf. We've got the information on the pricing of the bonds. I was actually rather excited when he said $2 million in local investment. That's kind of exciting. Any other questions of staff? Okay. We do have a resolution on the table, and I guess Mr. Dorman or Mr. Galloway, what does this resolution actually say? What does this tell us?
This authorizes the purchase of the bonds. It authorizes you to sign the bond purchase agreement and any other documents that are necessary to consummate the sale of these bonds.
Okay.
And if they're with the passage of the resolution this evening, I believe the closing would be
August 12th.
August 11th to 12th, August 12th.
That actually was going to be my next question was, could you walk us through, and we don't need the nth detail, but what is the process after this step? What happens next? Obviously, there's a closing on
John,
borrowing.
you could probably, the next step is actually the closing.
Yeah.
Basically over the next 10 days, the attorneys will finalize all documents associated with the transaction. And then we'll have a wire of funds on the 12th, movement of the money to the trustee bank, and you guys can start spending the funds.
Just to make sure we're using a red crayon on the Big Chief tablet here, the closing is actually our signing the documents to borrow the money.
Correct.
And our signatures today, or your signature today, this is all the action we have to take after this, correct?
Right, you're actually authorizing the purchase of the bonds, and you're authorizing the mayor to execute the necessary documents.
Okay.
The
and
closing will probably, it hasn't been decided yet, probably either, I was told today, either in Tulsa or New York. I'm not sure where the closing will be.
I'm not sure on that.
But we'll find out.
Okay. All right. Any other questions of staff? Or Mr. Wolf?
Do we all have to go to New York?
I'm sure there can be some overnighting that's occurring, so anyway. All right. If there are no further questions, is there a motion on Resolution SUA 2014-7?
Motion to approve resolution SUA 2014-7.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And that is approved 4-0.
I think it, just for the record, I'd like to say, there's been a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes on this project. This is unique. It's a first-time experience for Stillwater. Municipal Finance Services, John and Rick Smith have been tremendously helpful. Don Kaiser is our counsel, bond counsel. Our staff people, Dan Blankenship, Lauren Smith, Finance Department, everybody's really worked hard on it. J.P. Morgan, people have been just fantastic to work on this, to try to fine-tune this thing to the city's benefit. And it's been an extremely complex coordination of a lot of expertise, but I think the news today was the payoff, and so really want to express appreciation to all those people. It's been quite a task.
Thank you very much. And like Dan said, there have been a lot of people, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I've taken from this is the level of expertise we have on staff when it comes to crunching the numbers with the projections and also that side of things. We already knew we had strong on the electric technical side, but the financial side really shone through this process. So thank you.
Lee, Tammy, there's been a big team working on this.
Okay. All right. Nothing further on the agenda. Do you guys have any comments to make about the resolution?
No.
And process?
Thanks to the staff.
Yep, happy to have it done.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn.
Now you can vacation in peace.
As approved 4-0, we are adjourned.
I'd like for someone